So there wasn't to be one of the great shocks in Six Nations history, as most of us wouldn't have expected there to be. But Ireland have done to Italy what many people would have predicted. What are the conclusions, though, that we can draw from this game when it is a match where one team was so heavily favoured and they do end up winning? Welcome back to the channel. Ireland against Italy. Comment down below, let me know what you made of it. What did you make of the performance of both teams? And what do you think are, if any, the conclusions that you can take from a match like this? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Alfie. If you can like the video and subscribe as well, then I'd massively appreciate that. But because of that very reason, these games are often the ones that are the hardest to analyse and the hardest to look back on and speak about in a way, because Ireland were the heavy favourites. They're now the favourites to do back-to-back Grand Slams. We've waxed lyrical about how strong and how good and how consistent this team is. So when we see them at home against Italy, who many people would have down for the wooden spoon, when we see them win so comfortably, what can we learn from it? I think there are a few different things. First of all, final score 36-0 in favour of Ireland. I think there's a lot we can take away from it from Italy, but I want to start with the Irish, because for all the attack, the tries they scored, we know all that about Ireland. We saw that last week against France, who are a much stronger opposition. The continuity in their game when they get moving, they are so difficult to stop. I think the most pleasing thing from an Irish point of view today will be the control in the game, because, and I'll get on to Italy as I say, whilst Italy had some nice moments, brief they may be, and they were mainly in the first half, Ireland were always in control of that. In particular from a defensive point of view. Again, Italy never massively looked like scoring, but they did have some attacking sets in that first half. There was maybe a period between the first Ireland try and the second try. I think the first try was on 8 minutes, the second try was on 23 minutes. In that intervening period, Italy did have some of the ball, they did go through the phases, and Ireland were just able to repel them. And also, it's not often you see teams get nilled. I think they said on the commentary for ITV that I was watching, it's the first time Ireland have ever nilled Italy. So whilst Ireland were the favourites, whilst we expected them to win, you still shouldn't take for granted the fact that they have been able to keep an opponent scoreless. But I think that was the main thing from my point of view when looking at Ireland, just the sheer control that they had over the game. Because even though I didn't expect Italy to win, I did think they would be able to trouble them slightly more than we ended up seeing, and Ireland deserve credit for that. Elsewhere, you look across that Irish performance and the line-out was really good once again. The scrum was really solid and they got penalties from it. The attacking game, as I mentioned, was good. The defensive game, when they did have to go through multiple defensive sets, was very, very good as well. We saw Andy Farrell rotate this team, bring players in. That's always going to be a strong thing, particularly when you get this sort of performance and this sort of result. I appreciate there isn't loads you can take out of it. From an Irish perspective, it is one of those matches where you say a sense of job done, well done, we've done what we expected, and we move on into the rest of this championship with some tough games to come. Jack Crowley as well, I suppose. If we want to talk about individuals, James Lowe, player of the match, was absolutely excellent. What he brings to that team, not just in an attacking sense, and we saw that with the try he scored, brilliant finish, reminiscent a bit of what we saw from Ben Earl yesterday, where someone has to smash their way through a number of different bodies and then stretch out, dab the ball down on the line. We see it with his kicking game, how they use him in terms of clearing to touch and things like that. He's such an important part of that team. So James Lowe was good. Baird, who has got some game time today, very, very good. And Jack Crowley as well. In terms of his all-round game, I think Jack Crowley's had a really strong start to this Six Nations. If you're being hypercritical, you might point towards the fact that there's a couple of missed kicks in there, which if you are looking at a guy to be a regular 10 and you're looking down the line when you're going to have tighter test matches, maybe even that South Africa series later on this year, those are the sort of kicks that he maybe needs to be nailing, but that's really nitpicking. Overall, Ireland, very, very good. Let's get on to Italy and the Italian perspective. So, on the one hand, Italy's success this Six Nations was never going to be defined or determined by what happened away from home and their result against Ireland in Dublin. But nonetheless, I think they will be disappointed, because I actually thought they had some good stuff in moments. I mentioned that phase of play in the first half. They had ball in hand. They went through multiple phases in attack and they didn't really go anywhere. On other times, they're able to give themselves a platform, and it might be the first pass off the back of a line out, the ball goes to ground. I think it'll be things like that, those sorts of details, that will really frustrate Italy. And going back to my original question, what conclusions can we take from this sort of game? I suppose from an Italian perspective, it is a reminder of the areas that they need to keep improving, which are often the areas that they've needed to improve for a little while. But I think we did have that reinforced with us today, because we did see their shortfalls in terms of the accuracy at times letting them down. I actually thought some of their defence at times was very good as well. They got put under a lot of pressure, and sometimes they had to go through multiple phases, double digits of phases in defence. They held Ireland out, but eventually, when you're having to do that, that Ireland team is too good. They are always going to be able to score on you. So I think from an Italian perspective, there's no doubt that they missed some of the players that dropped out through injury, the likes of Negri, some of their best ball carriers. They perhaps lost a little bit of weight and heft and ability to get over the gain line, because even when we did see them in attack, they weren't really punching holes in the Ireland defence. But as I say, it's a tricky one, because Italy's success now in this championship comes down to games they've got coming up. Most likely that match away at the end of the championship on the final weekend away to Wales. Those are the sorts of games, I think, where we will be able to judge this Italian team better. I suppose the counter-argument to that could be the fact that last year we saw them, they might have lost to France and Ireland, but they pushed them closer than we saw them push them today. Could be an argument you'd put forward. I maybe wouldn't prescribe to it particularly. But yeah, a reminder of where they need to improve for Italy. And I suppose one final thing as well was just Stephen Vany at 9. And 9 for a while for Italy, I think, has been an area that they've struggled to find someone who is top quality. But the box kicks for him, I know we saw it today, him getting charged down. I feel like we've seen that before. That is clearly an area that he needs to work on. It's not the reason they lost when that's the scoreline. And maybe it's a little unfair to speak about him specifically, but it was something that struck me and that I felt like I'd seen this script before when it came to box kicks and Stephen Vany. So it's one of those games that is really difficult for us to be able to say too much about. We probably haven't learnt a huge amount about Ireland because we know they're so good. We saw that last week against France, but they've done what they have needed to do, and you should never underestimate keeping a side to 0 as they did today against Italy, because it doesn't happen too often, and they continue marching forward. They are in a brilliant place as we head into the first rest week and as they look ahead to the fixtures to come for them. And as for Italy, I wonder whether they're going to get a win this Six Nations. I'm really fascinated by that. That is the hope for them. Pushed England all the way last week, might even feel particularly on the back of their second half performance that they should have got more out of that game, because they were disappointing in that second 40 minutes if they had just been a bit better. But they've got to kick on. They've got to learn from this. They have to get more accurate and they have to get more consistent, I think, as well. But I'll leave it there for now. It was probably always going to be a relatively short video because, as I say, it's 36-0. It's Ireland, the best team in the competition, against Italy, possibly the weakest, one of the weakest teams in the competition. But let me know what you made of it. Comment down below, like the video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.